Hey everybody, welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I am beyond thrilled today to be here with Shawn VanDiver and John Moses. You guys know both of these guys. They've been on multiple times. John Moses is the co-founder of Massachusetts Afghan Alliance. Shawn VanDiver is president of Afghan EVAC, and we're here today to talk about an interesting piece that is fallacious as all get out from the Ben Franklin Fellowship about the SIV program purportedly. And we're going to just poke all the holes in it so that you guys can know what the truth is, because I think it's really important right now that we don't let false reporting be spread about our allies and a program that has broad bipartisan support. And I'm just saying all the words that I know you gentlemen are going to say. So without further ado, we didn't talk about how we're going to do this, but who wants to go at it first?
I think it'd be good for Shawn to go first. I think people should understand the technical background of all the things that's left out, and I would like to chime in here and there with just some other commentary on things I've noted as a professional, professional soldier and just being out in this world. But I actually am very curious about Shawn's take on the technical side of it because he knows more about that.
Sure, happy to help. Here's the thing. This piece, it starts out bad, right? It starts out anonymous. And if you're proud of what you're doing, or if you're standing strong in the work that you're putting out there, you put your name on it. I've written probably like 150 op-eds or something. I've never tried to do something anonymously because I believe in the things that I work on. What we keep seeing from folks at the Ben Franklin Fellowship is they want to say a thing. They want to get like a bad idea out there. They're unwilling to put their name on it. They are unwilling to do the work to understand the nuts and bolts of it. And they just say a bunch of stuff and try to make it sound really scary and bad. And that would be totally fine. There's all sorts of dumb shit that goes out on the internet all the time, right? People say maniac stuff on the internet all the time. I read comments sometimes, and there's just maniacal things that are put out there. But the difference between what a random, 15 characters on the internet is saying, as opposed to what the Ben Franklin Fellowship is saying, is that Ben Franklin Fellowship counts among its membership the Deputy Secretary of State, the guy in charge of Consular Affairs, the deputy guy in charge of Consular Affairs, and a litany of folks across the State Department, which I understand it sort of got stood up when women and people that didn't John started getting jobs, as a sort of response to that. They don't do their homework. They don't understand the serious issues at play here, and they all seem very much to be into not having any immigration at all. They're way out of alignment with American society. So this article starts out by the main thesis of this article is that the Afghan SIV program served its purpose. It was always bad. There's a bunch of fraud, and we have no use for it anymore. All the good ones got here, right? That's none of what the article says is true. There are kernels of truth to it, twisted into a narrative that is just flat out wrong. We know that this system is still necessary because there are, at last count, over 175,000 people with chief of mission approval, 34,000 or 35,000 principal applicants, plus all of their family members. They've been through the process. They've gotten approved. All of those people are just waiting on flights to go from Kabul or somewhere else to a place where they can process their visa and then come here. Now, these guys like to talk about vetting. He mentions the fraud prevention unit and talks about it in such a way as though it's gone away because the embassy went away. But that's just not true. At Afghan EVAC, we worked with the State Department during the last administration when they were willing to have conversations with people. And we know that not only did they make the fraud prevention units more robust, they had one at CARE, they had one at ASIV, they had one obviously throughout the vetting process. And if you want to go to afghanevac.org/vetting, you can see it in depth, which we put out because we knew that bullshit like this was going to happen. And we know that they started leveraging tools and technologies to do that. So, look, we know that it is not less secure. In fact, it's more secure than it's ever been. We know that enduring welcome for SIVs, for refugees, for anybody that was coming through that program is the safest, most secure legal immigration program our country's ever seen.
I do want to riff off of that. So here's the thing that is I find incredibly lazy about the article. So you have a diplomat, or a diplomatic corps. I don't believe, first of all, this person could have served in Afghanistan. This Civis Legatus, using a Roman name is kind of a weird thing. And so I actually wrote an article on Substack under Stranger in a Strange Land about this article where I talk about and really just kind of shine a light on how silly it all is. But I think it really belies all of the work that people like Afghan evac and all of the volunteers did during that time to make sure, because I think we all knew that it was going to come under great scrutiny, that what happened after the evacuation was hard, and all of the things that came with it, the politics, all of that stuff. I wanted to approach it from a senior NCO perspective. So I was stationed in Afghanistan in 2011-12. Senior NCO, my first posting in an embassy, which was a really unique position for me. And I'm from New England, so I get kind of an attitude. But I think the real thing is you could call out some bullshit, right? That's one of the things that was different about NCOs and military people on an embassy. And so when I read this article, what I hear are big words, right? There's no meaning behind it. They're these broad, sweeping ideas that this one flaw in a system, which we're legally obligated to participate in, even though we do everything we can as a country to ruin that now, but we have an obligation to do that, and so that means you have an obligation to find a way to make it work, right? And to put that commitment back. So the commitment like that Shawn and these other groups have done and done all this work, they owe us that back as global war and terror veterans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, right? Like, why is it that we have to do all of this work? And look, we know that there were hardworking people at the State Department going after this, like pursuing, in hot pursuit of this, breaking themselves to do this work. It's the political folks that have come in and they've starved the system of resources, and they'll tell you, oh, don't worry, SIV's still going. Oh, well, thank you. We were using 4,000 SIVs. We were bringing 4,000 SIV and their family every month. Now it's 200 who are finding their ways here. A lot of what they cite in this article is about this guy Jeremy Pittman, who's an American citizen who committed a bunch of crimes. Yeah, you know what we do with shitty people, whether they're Afghan or American? We identify them, we isolate them, and then we excise them. We get rid of them, right? So, and that has worked. It's a 30% approval rating on. A 30% approval of chief of mission right now. Like the system is working really, really slowly, but effectively. And it could be better. We would like it to be better. And in fact, we've tried to talk to the State Department about ways that we could make it better so that not just SIVs, because SIVs aren't the only important people, right? There's all of these folks who stood up with the idea that the United States was backing their budding democracy. And whether they were prosecutors and lawyers putting the Taliban away, they were women who were standing up to run for parliament, or women who were leading female tactical platoons, or they were human rights activists or journalists or aid workers or whoever they were. When we left after not completing our mission, we broke it, we bought it, right? Like we owe it to these folks. Programs were designed for them. They were accepted into the programs, moving through it. So even if they cut it off there, with everybody who had already applied or been accepted into the program, great. Yeah. That is what you get to do with your policy. And then if the next, the next person that gets in there wants to change that, cool too. But that's not what they did. They not only have they made it very difficult for anybody to access the program. Everybody who's already in the program, if you're a refugee, they've sold. Sorry, we're selling you up the river. It doesn't matter if you're at CAS. If you're here in the United States and you made it here through parole. They've canceled your parole, and now I'm going into courtrooms and I'm hearing attorneys for the Department of Homeland Security say, well, they're here illegally. And luckily, most of the attorneys and judges are smart enough to say, well, let's dig in on that. What do you mean by illegally? How did they get here illegally? Well, they crossed the southern border. Oh, you mean they were here legally, and then you took away their temporary status.
I think the right term, I've heard this before too, and the term I use is made them illegal. Right? They didn't.
Yeah,
first of all, they weren't illegal until you made a choice that you wanted them to be illegal. And that's an argument I have a lot with common, like people out in the street, and they're like, well, they're here illegally. And I'm like, what you don't understand is people can change a status and then all of a sudden make everybody illegal. And if they're not going to follow the rules anyway, right, the typical process in the State Department and the courts and all that stuff, I mean, it really just goes out the window. I think, yeah, that's all I had to say. Sorry. I'm like, I'm hit or miss today. Go ahead.
We didn't talk about this, like,
change.
we didn't talk about this idea of, like, oh, it's hard to vet these people. We have more information on people in Afghanistan than we have anywhere else in the world. It doesn't matter that the Taliban isn't going to share information with us. Would we trust the information the Taliban gave us?
Yeah. And in the article, I talk about that rebuttal in there, but the rebuttal to Civis Legatus, whatever his name is. In that rebuttal, I talk about that. What if he knew his ass from his elbow? So if Civis Legatus knew his ass from his elbow, what he would understand is he'd understand that outside of just the official checks and the work we did to make security better and to do all that, we're all accountable to each other, right? All of the people that help Afghans and SIVs out of Afghanistan have reputations. And our reputations are really important because people have to trust us.
Yep.
So while I'm not, you know what? I did work at an embassy and I did learn a little bit about SIVs. And I'm not an expert and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a practical expert. I can get people out of Afghanistan, right? And I think that path should remain open. And I think new applications should remain open. Because, like I say in the article, duty doesn't expire, right? It doesn't have an off-ramp. You owe what you owe. And I also think this is a very small part of the country, right? This is a very small part of the electorate, right? The Global War on Terror generation, I don't believe, will accept a full-on stop of the SIV program. And I think it would go poorly for Republicans in any capacity, whether it's in Congress or whether it's in State Department, to continue to punch veterans in the face. Last week, we had our first ICE detention. We had our first ICE detention of an Afghan who had brain cancer. And he lost, and Beth actually did a great article about it, and goes over to ask, like, what he thinks is a cop for directions, pulls out all of his papers, does all the things he's supposed to, and the guy's moved from 3 different places, and we ended up getting him bond. But what are you doing? What are we doing? Like, why are you paying bonuses for arresting our allies? So the world isn't right now, but I think that article is just really lazy, too broad, and I especially kind of shows a very small inward point of view as opposed to that view of who America really is, and who Ben Franklin, by the way, in his older age, learned about the whole importance of migration. And he went to France, and he met people of different races and religions, and really grew and believed that became part of the American dream, as we had something unique that everybody could share. Ben Franklin would not have approved of this article, I don't think.
So I want to talk about CARE, because, you know, the first time that I encountered people lying about the SIV program was when I had Phil Linderman on this podcast with Shawn a couple months back. And after that, I got really interested in talking to the CARE team. And I had actually been really adversarial with CARE for a long time because they had been taking away people's comm approvals. And I saw what appeared to be innocent people losing comm in the States, right? And I got some people at the CARE team to go through line by line that first set of articles and just kind of say, no, here's the reality here, here's the reality here. And unfortunately, that was after I had talked with Phil. But this time that we're talking about Civis Legatus, I went and talked to the CARE team again. And the fraud protection unit that he says went away, that's entirely incorrect. Every consular security has a fraud department. It's standard visa processing for anyone or anything. The NVC also has a standard FPU, and that existed before SIV and will continue after them. This is all from my contact. Also, I mean, look at all the fraud that they caught. And they get better at it with time because they see more of these things. Also, there's one more thing I want to contradict in this article, and that's that, you know, we just, this person makes it sound like we just get a bunch of information from Afghans and we're like, look, it's a letter, look, it's a letter, look, it's a letter. Look, I have seen hundreds and hundreds of LORs, of HR letters that have not been deemed official by state, and they were, but they didn't have the right contract number, or they didn't have whatever. This person clearly has no idea what goes in to providing this information to the NVC. Like, it's absolutely unconscionable
Right.
It's
And can I
just
just
there's
really
just
quickly
so
riff?
yeah. Please,
Can I
please.
quickly
That's
riff
all I
on that? And
had.
what really upsets me, right? So if you're going to write out and put an article from a place like that, the thing is if you are in a place where, like, if you've served in an embassy, whether it be like, I don't know, Latin America or Afghanistan or wherever, you have contacts and you could just go make phone calls and actually figure out that's not true. And also, if you're very senior level, which again, I don't know if Civis Legatus is, but he put ambassador in his title. And so I feel like you're a person that would understand these things. And if you didn't, what direction and how did you work your way through state? Because there's a bunch of ways through state that don't actually require that same amount of capacity. So all I'm going to say is, how lazy would it be, and how lazy is it, I should say, to not make a couple of phone calls and figure out what you found out as a reporter in just a few minutes with one contact, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And that's the thing is I make my living off of doing this.
Yes.
And I don't get published unless I have accurate information, or at least I've asked for it so I can say I asked state and didn't get anything, you know? And that's the thing is when you're just writing from a think tank, you don't have to do that.
Right.
You just get to say whatever heinous thing you want.
If these are really people like Shawn said too that are in the embassy right now, not in the embassy, in State Department right now, and they have influence, this concerns me. I also believe that we have had several incidents, and if you want to talk about the care team, I mean, they did a lot of great work working on getting the care team up and running, getting it funded, getting it permanently part of the congressional process, get it voted in, make it legitimate. And we had this really incredible tool, and these are the same people that have broken that down outside of the rules. They've taken away funding from it, they've taken away people from it, and that is not what the people voted for in the previous Congress. And so it makes me concerned that these people will write an article like this and then all of a sudden the SIV program is gone because there's no rhyme or reason to anything. So I think it's irresponsible.
They shouldn't be able to shut it down because it's mandated by law, and by the courts, right? But they keep doing all this.
And I know that they have other ways that they can handle that. They took away our funding, so now so we have an SIV coming out. He found out with a week and a half. He has like a week and a half to move, right? And all of a sudden, if he doesn't have any money, he doesn't know what to do. Like there are other ways you can slow down a program just through sheer incompetence or shield malfeasance, just not doing it. So while they haven't shut it down, they're working really hard to squeeze it tight. Yeah. That's what they're doing.
Well, and if we don't get more SIVs, like, you know, Shawn, you were on the podcast last Monday talking about the number left. So really, if we don't get more, it is going to be the end of the SIV program.
In case anybody's wondering, we have about 76 to 7,800 right now available. Those numbers aren't published yet. The State Department has a leak problem. I've written them emails to inform them of this. They don't seem to care about their leak problem. This story here is what turned me on to the fact that they have a leak problem, but I digress. 7,600 left. There are over 34,000 people with COM approval who still need to fly to get an interview.
Yep, and you know what's really messed up? Like, I'm going to bring this up. The 0 units. Trained by the CIA, brought here because they were the last ones to help us clear the airfield at HKIA and frickin' man many of the security checkpoints outside. They're here. They don't have parole anymore. Their 2 years of parole that got re-extended in 23 are now up. And they don't have SIV. How many thousands of them don't have SIV?
And at this point, the question is, when we had a government that we could reason with, or we could at least have a conversation with, we could say, hey, those folks should all get asylum. If they get SIV, they take away an SIV number. If we're not going to get any more SIVs, well, shit. Every single one of those 7,600 should probably go to somebody overseas, right? But at this point, we don't know if they're going to be able to get asylum. So it's this horrific dilemma that people are in. And obviously they deserve SIV, but SIV or asylum, it doesn't matter, right? Like here, safety is what people deserve. And it shouldn't be this hard. We need a better system.
Yeah. So guys, I'd like to close it up if we can, because I feel like we've said a lot. So I'm going to give you each your closing words, you know, whatever you want to say, within reason.
I'll be within reason. Go ahead. Shawn, do you want to go first? Like, either way.
Sure, happy to go first. Look, I consider this an open invitation. Meet me anywhere on cable news, on a podcast, in the cafeteria of the State Department. Let's talk about Afghan wartime allies. You're going to have to show your face, though. but let's have a conversation about it. It can be public, it can be private. These folks earned their shot at the American dream, and you're in their way, which means that you're somebody I want to talk to, and we're going to push through it. We can work it out together.
I dig it. I get it. Yeah, and for what I want to say is this old senior NCO, just to close out what I said in my article, and I hope you do read it, Mr. Legatus, because I think you require some common sense, and I think there is a requirement to probably serve in the country you're commenting on, and just because you ended up in the top spot doesn't mean you're the best. People rise to their highest level. And I'll close out with Mr. Franklin's words, which he said in the Poor Richard's Almanac in 1744. Words may show a man's wit, but actions his meaning. So go out and do some actual good work, Mr. Legatus. That's it. Yeah. That's how I'm going to close it.
I'm just so grateful to all the people still pulling for this. You know, I mean, having you guys both on here is like just such a cool thing. And I think there are a lot of people who don't know how cool a thing that is. And that's okay.
I wore a Massachusetts shirt today.
I saw that. I actually was going to comment. I was like, you wore a Mass shirt. I love it.
It's amazing. And I just, like I'm so grateful because if there weren't people like all of us in our own ways doing all this stuff, like this kind of stuff would be what people believe about this program. So I'm so grateful to be part of this insane effort that just keeps going, to make good noise and do great things, no matter who you are and what what political party you believe in, because this is a humanity issue. And, we could all use a little more of that right now. So thank you guys so much. And thanks everybody who's listening. Civis Legatus, you want to come on? I'll host you. We'll all talk to you. It'll be great.
I'll invite you cordially.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I mean, hey, ask Phil Linderman. He knows. He was here. It was a cordial conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
It was lovely. I mean,
Civis
he left with no lunch, but yeah.
Oh, well, I don't think that Phil felt that way, honestly. I don't think he felt that way. And so maybe Civis Legatus won't either. All right, everybody, thanks so much for paying attention. Thanks for keeping up the good fight. And Tasha Corrins, see you all soon.